This is a way to model a building fairly quickly and simply. I'll move kind of slow. You can go a little faster than this. So the first thing we want to do is create the pillars, and we want to be sure we put the material on it first so we don't have to put it on each individual item. So all I'm doing here is adding a texture using a mix node and a noise texture and a math operator in the multiply mode so that I can control how much texture is actually visible. I want to turn up the detail pretty high on some of these things. Concrete pillars, things like that. It's not that critical how much detail. Detail becomes important when you're doing some things like a sky, putting in some clouds, things like that. I'm not real good about naming things, but it's a good idea. You lose track of which square and which cube and which plane is which as you work along if you don't name. Now I want to set these on the ground. Adjusting in the edit mode keeps the origin point down on the ground. So get the pillar to the size that you want. I've got the screencast keys going so you can see what's going on. Use an array modifier. And just determine how many pillars you think you want to have on your building. If you want to have pillars, you can design the ground floor any way you want. I kind of like the inset first floor or first few floors, whatever, and then have the pillars supporting the outside. I just like that look. So now that I've got one wall, I just build out the complete set. And then we want to get rid of the middle pillars. So the way you do that is you just go in and separate by loose parts. Go back into object mode and then take out the ones that are going to be in the center that aren't relevant. Okay. Now we need to have a first floor module and a main building module. So we'll make 2 cubes and kind of get them positioned and size how you want them. All of this is just basic modeling, so there's nothing complicated here. I don't see the need for a lot of explanation and narrative on this, so I'll keep it to a minimum. I could have saved a lot of steps here by centering everything on the world axis, but hindsight's 20/20. What you want to do is keep in mind the scale of your building, because if those pillars represent 1 story, then that's going to affect how tall your building is in general. If it represents 2 or 3 floors on the main area, the core area, then that's a whole different matter. So when you're creating your floors, you want to keep that in mind, the scale. How many floors would this building have? Assuming a floor was 10 feet. So when you're modeling, think about those things. And we're going to be using a wireframe modifier on the building to create the windows and the separators, the columns and things like that. So we're going to have to separate the roof from the main building before we actually apply that modifier. So that's the reason I do that. We don't want to have windows on the roof. My building is square, so I have tried to get the same number of windows on each side. Okay. Now you see your modifier there. You can have these pillars and things as thick or as thin as you want, just kind of to taste. And you do not want to replace the main building because that would eliminate the windows, and then you got to build them all in or reinvent the main box. So uncheck replace original, and you'll have both the mesh and the wireframe and the middle. So now we can go in and assign materials. And we'll go into edit mode and face mode. Face select. So we can select one of the faces, and then we go in, select similar, and choose perimeters. Now we have all of the main box selected. Now we can add a new material and make it a glass. And I like to give it just a little bit of color. A lot of new buildings have tinted glass. And I just reassigned the pillars just to make sure that it's correct and it took. So there's the basic structure right there. Now we need to model a little bit of the roof, and you can do this whatever you want. You can put little utility buildings up there and all that. I'm just making a basic structure to show you how I do it. I could do a lot more refinement here, but I'm just putting together again a basic building. So you can see it's starting to take pretty good shape now. So sometimes I work myself to death setting the view, but it's real easy to grab the capital key instead of the shift key, and then you start rotating things and you got to adjust. So sometimes it's better to move slowly than it is to try and hurry. Most of the time that's true, actually. So all we're doing with these is just creating a mesh for the modifier to act on so that we can divide it up into windows. How many windows you want determines how much you're going to divide up the mesh. It's getting a little hard. I should have made that plane a different color for the ground. Makes it kind of hard to select and make sure you've got it selected, the correct cube. So, and again, that's a strong argument for naming. I could have gone to the outliner and picked it out had I named it correctly. Okay. Now we've got it created. We're going to go and do the same thing as we did in the main building and set up the materials. Part of those are obscured, so it's kind of hard to see if they're selected or not. So anyway, now we'll add glass to that. Then we'll invert the selection and add the pillar material. And you can make concrete pillars and steel separator columns, etc. Just whatever you want to do with it. I'm just using two basic materials to illustrate the process. And just for kicks, I'll throw in a corporate name for the bank. That plane sure makes it hard to see. I didn't think that one through a little bit. Move it out here where we can see it. And we want to give it a name. There we go, a normal bank. I could think of a lot of names to give it, but I'll be nice on this tutorial. Just extruding the letters out here to give a three-dimensional sign for the building. And I'm pretty sure banks would put the name on all four sides, but I'm just doing the process here again. And we need to position it and scale it on the bank. Nothing difficult in this process. You can do this with a round building, an L-shaped building, a curved building, whatever you want. That wireframe modifier is an excellent tool when you're modeling buildings. Make an entire city pretty quickly by just making 5 or 6 different sizes of shapes, different colors of glass, etc., and then grouping them and use a particle system on a plane, and you've got a city. It's pretty straightforward. Now I'm making the sky here. It's pretty easy to do. A lot of people put a sky texture in, but that makes it kind of soft. I like to be able to have nice defined clouds, so I skip the sky texture and just put it straight noise texture in. And that's the thing with the detail. It tops out at 16, but you can manually enter a number and make it as high as you want. So then you adjust the color. then position the sliders to get the best look that you're looking for, your scale. Makes things nice. If you want to animate your clouds and make them moving, you can add in a mapping node, and then you can animate the positions and the rotations, and it'll make the clouds move during any animation you might have. You want to keep those moving pretty slow, though. It's real easy to get them too fast. So now we got a building taking shape pretty good, but it's missing a core. It's all completely see-through on the inside, so we got to add in a core. And I also forgot to add in the floorings. If you don't have any floors in there, it kind of shows through that you don't have any when you're rendering. You could put some opacity on the glass and hide that fact, or you can just put the floors in. It's not a difficult process. Again, I could have saved some time here by using centering and cursor to selected and all of that, but I didn't plan ahead when I set this up. I just started the recorder. And this core of the building is not real visible, so we don't care if it's got a material on it or what kind of material. It's just to give us the effect of having a core to the building. And this building is using an open floor concept, so I could have just expanded this out to make it more like office spaces and things, but if you're building a city scene, it's not that important what's on the inside the building. But you do want any buildings up close to have at least some portion of realism. So now here I'm deciding to actually create my floors in the right place. So I use the cursor and snapping methods. One thing I've found is you can't really use an array on a plane, or if you can, it doesn't show up for some reason, so I just always make the plane extruded up to give it some thickness. Kind of hard to tell what's what here because of the other detail. Just want a real thin floor. Might have been a little simpler to make the floor larger than the building perimeter so that I could see it, work with it, and then scale it back down. Okay, so now we're just gonna match it up to the floors on the building itself. I'm not sure what it is about the array, but it seems like the further out you go, the more critical it is on how much you offset. It can look pretty good in the first couple of them, but until you get them all up there, you really don't know how far you've got to adjust it. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. It's looking a little better now. You can actually tell that there's some floors in there when the whole building isn't totally see-through. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I think you could size up the ground a little bit larger to fit your scene, that kind of thing. But essentially the building's finished. So this is just one technique of building a building, and hope you find it useful, and thanks for watching.